Have you always thought that you could do it on your own? You don't need anybody. Everything that you need, you can take care of. That if you ask for help, you're weak. Well, it's all wrong. Today on Be a Better Person, we're going to talk about asking for help. And this is one that I really know a bunch about. And always remember that just because I say things doesn't mean it's right for you, doesn't mean that it's right for everyone. It means that it's some thoughts that I have on it. And hopefully I get some feedback from you. But anyways, I say this is a good one for me because, again, if you watched some of the beginning videos about me and stuff, you know that the first part of my life before I was 17, 3 divorces, I lived, I think, like 9 places, 11 schools, just had a lot of turmoil and things. And so just got that mindset that I could do everything on my own, that I don't need anybody's help. I can do it. And again, because I think maybe in moving and changing those schools, you didn't develop some of those early long-term relationships. I mean, I'm very fortunate now. I have several people who I've been friends with since I was 14 years old. And maybe back when I first was younger, I didn't ask them for help a lot, but I would ask them in a heartbeat and not think twice about it if I needed help right now. So I'm going to just kind of go into a couple of different experiences from my history of things that I made mistakes about. And so a lot of times too, like, you hint about things and you say things and you have expectations that somebody realizes that you needed help, instead of just coming out and asking. So there's going to be a couple things that I'm going to talk about. And the first one is going to be about when I built my house. It was my first house. We lived in a trailer. We had some property. We were building a house. And I asked my friends for help. My one friend, I asked for help to get me squared in for the foundation, the footings, to do my foundation. And then I later asked all my friends, because they were masons, to come help me put the blocks up for the basement and pour the floor, which they all helped. They never said no. But again, when you start asking for help and you're not used to, then you feel like you've overextended. Now, again, these are all people too that I helped over the course of my life and did a lot of different things for, as well, because they asked, and I loved being helpful and didn't mind helping at all. So anyways, my friend showed me how to do the footings, got them all laid out, called and ordered the cement. Didn't know I was supposed to ask for more chutes to extend the concrete out farther and around, because again, where the hole was, you couldn't drive around it. And I was not smart enough to go borrow a real wheelbarrow. I had a like little lawn wheelbarrow that was not very deep. It was very shallow, and it was very cheaply made. So needless to say, I almost thought I was going to die because of the surface of that basement, which was wet through pea gravel. Hauling that to finish off the footings, I thought I was going to die. And the driver, he got mad because he was there way longer than he thought he should have been. And my lovely wife, she was awesome because she had to go around troweling the tops of the footings to make it all nice and smooth before it got too dry. Very fun experience. Should have just asked my friends for help, which they probably would have been more than willing to do. I've also never asked anyone to help me get a job, which is another silly thing, especially when I worked for a newspaper and all I sold stuff was other businesses, and they could see my work ethic and they could see how hard I worked. And I never thought about advancing my career through asking any of them if they needed anybody or if there are any positions available that I could fill. Just nothing that ever crossed my mind. Always said, oh, I can get my own job if I need to. So I'm not going to ask. And I had friends who worked at other places too, and I never once said, hey, can you get me in there? Hey, can you say, and again, people who knew me, knew my stories, knew my experience. Just very silly, never asked. Another story about asking for help. My very first time that I really had to ask for something big, and I can't even remember to this day of why I did it, because my cousin, Angie, was several years older than me. I still right now don't know. I would say somewhere between 7 and 9. And my mom couldn't co-sign for my first car, but for some reason, and I don't remember why, but maybe she had put something out. If my mom had put something out to other family members, and he just volunteered. But my cousin Angie's husband George co-signed for my first student loan. It was a very hard thing for me to ask and want to do, and I promised him. I said, "You will never get a call from the bank, and this will be paid off as quick as possible." And I'm pretty sure it was paid off a year before. And then, of course, the second thing I had to ask for was a co-signing for my student loans to go to college. And again, I had to reach out to my mom's first husband, the first person who was technically my dad, not biological because I was adopted, but I didn't have a good relationship and hadn't talked to him in years, so it was really hard to just call up out of the blue. I didn't have other options of people that I could call to do that. And that was extremely hard as well. But another thing, I promised him, and I paid off my student loans 3 years early. So those are some things that really were hard for me. I'm still not that great, but I'm in a position now, and I've been in a position for the last probably 30 years of not really needing help, other than I could have possibly asked people for jobs, helping me get jobs when I was struggling in some of those areas. But again, things I just was like, I can always do this myself. I think now, if the situation occurred, I would easily ask for help, especially for projects or things if I think I can't just do them myself. And I've always, I mean, it's really silly that you stop and think that people will say no to you when I mean, I don't know if there's hardly any things other than maybe if it was monetary things that I've ever just not helped. I remember my niece, Brandy, she reached out to me and said that she wanted to buy this modular home in a trailer park and that she needed $5,000. And at the time, I wasn't overly well off, but my sister had died. She didn't have a lot. We lived far away, so I was kind of felt like I was a terrible uncle, and still do probably a little bit. I could have been much better, even though the distance. But anyways, she reached out, and I said, yes, I always will give everybody a chance. So with not having a relationship with her for several years, I sent her $5,000. But she laid out when she was going to give it back, how, and everything, and she did. And I told her once again from then, I said, if you ever need anything, I'll be more than happy to help. She never has, because she's been the same way and been able to take care of herself going forward from there. But anyways, we all struggle at times through our life, and I think that there's always times that we need help. And I just think that sometimes we get so stubborn and pig-headed that we don't ask, or we have expectations that people should know that we need help and they should just volunteer it. So you just really need to ask for help, because you find that as willing as you are to help, people are just as willing to help you. And especially if your relationship is good with the person and they know you and they trust you, and why would they not say yes? And gosh, if people say no, I mean, I understand if it's just an acquaintance or if it's something that's asking for a huge, sum of money or a huge commitment, then maybe people might say no, but then ask why they're saying no. I mean, they can say none of your business, I just don't want to. But, then maybe in those things, you may need to reevaluate your relationship with that person or whatever if they didn't want to help you, at least in some way, shape, or form. Because maybe if they can't even meet what you really wanted and just do something to make it slightly, help you out a little bit, that they wouldn't have tried, then maybe you just really need to evaluate the relationship. And then a lot of times people won't ask for help because they'll have a huge sense that they're obligated then, if the other person ever asks them for help on something, that they have to do that. And again, I think it just all depends on what it is that's being asked and what the commitment or effort or monetary value would be to do that. And I think that when you do ask for help, it actually develops stronger bonds and relationships with the person that you're asking for help with. I mean, there can be monetary, emotional, help with the task, help with advice, help with the project, help with something that you're struggling with a family member and you're asking somebody else for help with them, with that family member. We just always need help at different times in our lives, and we shouldn't be afraid to ask for help. And don't have expectations that they'll say yes. Figure that you're just asking, and maybe they'll want something in return for helping you. But the thing is, if you don't ask, you're never, ever going to know. And so ask for help, ask for help. Like I said, I think I would still have a really hard time on it. So if anybody has anything that they can relate to, that they were in the same situation, it was hard for them to ask for help, maybe some first times that they asked for help and uh, what happened when they did that. Um, if you still struggle right now with asking for help, but again, I think the best thing is if you always look at how willing are you to help. Most people probably will be that same way, especially if you have good relationships with them. So remember, your smile makes me smile. Be kind, be grateful, be helpful. And until next time, have a great day.